A retirement is announced at the U.S. Supreme Court, and the political war to replace Justice Anthony Kennedy is just heating up. Attorney with the Judicial Crisis Network, GAYLE TROTTER, is here to discuss who might replace Kennedy and what it could mean to the High Court. And Independence Day is just around the corner. We'll bring you a special preview of this year's A Capitol Fourth on PBS with executive producer Michael Colbert and a member of Motown's legendary Temptations, Terry Weeks. The World Over begins right now.
Now, from Washington, D.C., Raymond Arroyo.
A warm welcome to all of you joining us in the United States and the world over. GAYLE TROTTER, Michael Colbert, and Terry Weeks are all straight ahead. If you'd like to comment on tonight's show, send me a tweet. I'm at Raymond Arroyo. I'll be live tweeting throughout. And now, some news from the world over. Two huge stories coming out of Washington this week. Anthony Kennedy, the United States Supreme Court's most powerful justice in the last half-century, announced his retirement on Wednesday. Kennedy has been the decisive swing vote on many major high court decisions, including those touching on abortion, gay rights, gun rights, and affirmative action. He wrote the majority opinion that ruled same-sex marriage constitutional. After meeting with Kennedy, President Donald Trump said the 81-year-old justice was a man of tremendous vision and that his search for a new justice would begin immediately. He already has made public a list of 25 candidates, 24 judges, and Utah Senator Mike Lee. This vacancy on the High Court would create what could possibly be the most influential appointment to the court since 1953, when Earl Warren became Chief Justice and ushered in an era of judicial activism that has been with the court ever since. Without Kennedy, the court will be split between 4 judicial liberals and 4 conservatives. Trump's nominee is likely to give the conservatives a solid majority. Democrats have already rejected out of hand Trump's list of 25 and any nominee who opposes Roe v. Wade. But they can't prevent a vote. And the much-anticipated summit between Russian President Vladimir Putin and U.S. President Donald Trump is on. The Kremlin and the White House announced Thursday that the meeting between two of the world's most powerful leaders will take place in Helsinki, Finland, on July 16th. The announcement comes a day after Trump's national security advisor, John Bolton, met with Putin and other Russian officials in Moscow to lay the groundwork for the summit. Ahead of the announcement, Trump said he was looking forward to a Putin meetup.
And I've said it from day one, getting along with Russia and with China and with everybody is a very good thing. It's good for the world, it's good for us, it's good for everybody. You never know about meetings, what happens, right? But I think a lot of good things can come with meetings with people.
Trump said the two leaders would discuss Syria, Ukraine, among other subjects. And another immigration reform measure has gone down in defeat. The Republican-led House of Representatives rejected a far-ranging bill on Wednesday, despite its 11th-hour endorsement by President Trump. The vote was 301 to 121, with nearly half of Republicans voting against it. Even though the bill included $25 billion for the construction of Trump's long-promised border wall, the perception was that the measure also included amnesty for illegal immigrants. In the end, more than 100 GOP House members rejected it. Even if it were to pass, the bill would have likely been defeated in the divided Senate. So, Plan B, GOP leaders say they are now focused on a narrower bill. That would include barring the government from separating children from migrant families. And some big news to report for all you Will Wilder fans. I know you've been waiting for the next installment of the Will Wilder series. As many of you know, Book 1 and 2 are at your bookstore. They're in hardback, paperback, as well as audiobook. They make wonderful summer reads, by the way, particularly on those long vacation drives. But I am pleased to announce tonight the title of Will Wilder's next adventure. It's called Will Wilder, The Amulet of Power. It concerns a certain relic from the Old Testament, and I'm not saying anything further. The Amulet of Power will publish this March of 2019, and will reveal Will Wilder's incredible cover soon. Here with analysis on what's happening this week at the U.S. Supreme Court, I'm joined by attorney and spokesman for the Judicial Crisis Network, GAYLE TROTTER. GAYLE, thank you for being here.
Great to be with
Pleasure.
you. Pleasure.
I want to start with Kennedy's decision to retire. Why now? This has been talked about for a long time. Why do you think he decided to wait to this moment?
Right, well, it's very smart of him because a Republican controls the White House, and he knows that someone who has a constitutionalist approach to judicial philosophy is more likely to be appointed. And even though he was not necessarily a solid conservative or originalist on a whole host of issues, he does have a sense of protecting the Constitution and wanting to make sure that his legacy is preserved. And he would certainly not have a chance at that if Hillary Clinton had been president, but with President Trump set out the list of the possible nominees, so Justice Kennedy knows he can be assured there'll be somebody from that list.
Well, some thought the Gorsuch appointment was kind of a wink and a nod to Kennedy to tell him, look, here's one of your other clerks. You like this guy, chances are you'll like your replacement too.
Exactly.
Any credibility to that?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, because it is a big life change to step down from the Supreme Court, and you do want to make sure that your legacy is upheld and that you trust the person who's going to occupy your seat after you. And that is certainly something that, knowing that President Trump had appointed someone who was so solid and one of the best and brightest across the country, Neil Gorsuch, to fill Scalia's seat would certainly give Kennedy the satisfaction of knowing that would be what would happen.
Let's talk for a moment about Kennedy's legacy. Obviously, the Obergefell decision is going to loom large, the gay marriage decision.
Yes.
Anything else? And why do you think that casts such a long shadow?
Right, well, because, traditionally marriage had been a state concern. And so that kind of a decision was a little surprising to come out of the Supreme Court because of the history of marriage traditionally being a state concern, not being a federal concern, and particularly for a justice who had been appointed by a Republican president. And
Reagan's last appointment.
That's right, that's right. And so to think about the judiciary as not being a legislature, as it not being an activist court to put these type of huge changes across our culture was a surprising result. But there are other cases that Justice Kennedy was the crucial swing vote on. You think about gun rights, you think about Citizens United that allowed people to have the ability to express themselves politically. So he was not exactly easy to understand. He didn't have a really strong, clear judicial philosophy like Justice Scalia, like Justice Thomas. So it's really up for grabs.
Yeah, he was a swing vote. He read papers. He took the pulse of the nation for good or ill, and now he's leaving the court. So we'll see what happens next. Mitch McConnell, the leader in the Senate, reacted to the announcement of Kennedy's departure this way. Watch.
The Senate stands ready to fulfill its constitutional role by offering advice and consent on President Trump's nominee to fill this vacancy. We will vote to confirm Justice Kennedy's successor this fall.
Why is this fall so important, doing it now?
Right, well, the Supreme Court term starts in October. And so you want to make sure that you have someone who reflects this judicial philosophy of interpreting the law and not becoming an activist judiciary in place when the court takes up its next term. Certainly there continue to be big issues that the court has to decide, and Mitch McConnell knows that to have the ability to have the justice there is going to make a difference in all of these cases.
Is this a way to galvanize the Republican base before midterms?
True. On the political issue, certainly
because this
that's
helped
the
Donald
case.
Trump a great deal during, the Access Hollywood tape dropped, and most of those who voted for him said it was because of the SCOTUS appointment.
Right, and it's an important fact to know that of people who voted in the 2016 presidential election, 1 in 5 said that their primary reason for voting was because of the Supreme Court, and of those people, 58% of those people voted for Donald Trump.
Oh, wow, that's amazing. Give me your sense of where the next movement is here politically. Well, let me play this for you first. This is Chris Matthews in his advice to the Democratic caucus. Watch.
Well, I don't think the Democrats should allow even meetings to occur with Trump's nominee to fill this vacancy by Justice Kennedy. I think they have to fight eye for an eye for what happened in 2016, where the Republicans led by Mitch McConnell refused to even consider or even meet with Merrick Garland.
Many Democrats I spoke to this week are saying, you know what? You all held up Merrick Garland. He was appointed by President Obama. And then Mitch McConnell said, we can't vote on this. We have an election coming up.
Right.
Well, we've got an election coming up now. So why should they consider whoever the president puts forward?
That's a great question, because when roles were reversed and President Obama appointed Elena Kagan, it was right before a midterm election. And if you go back and look at the Senate Democrats who pushed for her confirmation, they're the same people who are now complaining that they don't want to hear and they don't want to have a vote for whoever President Trump's nominee is going to be. So then that gives you the idea that maybe it's just political. It's not a real deep principle that they have behind
Well,
this.
look, there's a lot of hypocrisy on both sides in this thing.
True.
And we should recall, Harry Reid is the guy who lifted that rule. What is the rule where if a nominee is considered just unacceptable, any member of the Senate can shelve that candidacy, that nominee for the Supreme Court, and I think any federal court, right?
Yes.
But Harry Reid did away with that rule.
Right. And they thought they had power and that they were not going to lose power, and they were focused on the short term. And despite the fact that the reason they have that rule is to try and promote Senate collegiality, they decided to blow that up. And now it's coming back to hurt them.
He also waived the majority. You needed the supermajority to get any federal judge through the process. Harry Reid waived that and made it a simple majority. He just rewrote the rule. 51 votes. Well, it seems that rule change has continued under Mitch McConnell, because that's how Gorsuch got there.
Absolutely. And on the political issue related to this, there are 51 Republicans, so they have the ability to push this through procedurally. But I think they're going to be able to peel off many of the Democrats too. You look at Joe Manchin in West Virginia. He's from a red state that has a lot of support for President Trump. It's a more conservative, more socially conservative state, and he is really hanging on by his fingernails in his upcoming election prospects. So you may see a lot of these Democrats say, well, we don't really support this nominee, but we're going to vote for this nominee. They'll have some, justification for it, but really it comes down to making sure that their base of support in their states don't hold it against them that they've opposed President Trump's nominee.
So you think the Chuck Schumer recommendation this week that no nominee of the president for the Supreme Court should be even entertained until January of 2019, you don't think that's going to happen?
No. And I think there's going to be significant outcry against that. And Mitch McConnell was so superb at making sure that the pressure from the media, from a lot of the elite institutions related to Merrick Garland, did not waver the Republican coalition. I think you will see the same sort of leadership from Mitch McConnell in making sure that President Trump is able to get his nominee a fair hearing.
I want to mention one thing to you. One of the things we've been hearing a real outcry about, and this is where I would take a little issue with what you said. I think Mitch McConnell's going to have a tough time, because many Democrats, many people on the left are saying, wait a minute, this is not just any Supreme Court justice leaving. This is the swing vote who protected Roe v. Wade. Listen to Cecile Richards, the former president of Planned Parenthood.
The folks that have been put forward already are like the most extreme right-wing nominees that you can imagine. This is a right women have had for more than 40 years in America. And it is wildly unpopular to think that you would actually now take away this right for not only women today, but generations to come.
How worried should liberals be about Roe v. Wade?
Well, this is a scare tactic of those who oppose any nominee that President Trump...
Well, he's got the list of 24, and we're going to go through some of these, the possibilities. What we're hearing are the top 5, but go on.
And this is not a single issue. It's not about a single issue. And this is not something new, this argument. This was an argument made against Sandra Day O'Connor. When she was nominated to the Supreme Court, President Reagan had to deal with that objection to her. So this is not a new play that they are trying to execute against President Trump and his nominee. And it's not about a single issue. The overriding thing that everyone should be thinking about is a philosophical commitment to the rule of law and to upholding the Constitution. And we can't predict how any judge would rule on any particular case, and they have to see the cases that come before them. All of these people on this list, they have a record of being able to be fair and independent. That's part of why they were selected. Right. And that's a good thing.
Did the president make a mistake when he promised during the campaign, I'm going to give you pro-life judges, pro-life judges?
Right.
Is that the right nomenclature?
Well, that could be taken many different ways. Pro-life could mean I want to appoint justices who respect conscience rights. I want to appoint justices who allow there to be space for religious faith on this issue. You see that the Supreme Court was really tending towards not respecting religious faith and conscience rights, particularly of Catholics related to abortion, but in a larger venue of related issues as well. So he said that definitely was to fire up his base, but it could be interpreted in many different ways.
How long before you think Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg retires?
I think she's keeping her vitamins. She wants to hang in there as long as possible.
Is she 85 now?
Yes.
I hear they literally carry Justice Ginsburg in at this point. So.
Well, and how amazing is that? I mean, what?
No, she's tenacious.
Yes,
tenacious.
Fierce.
Let's run through some of these possible nominees. I am told and heard rumblings from those who are vetting such things that these are the 5 people the president is considering most intensely. He's supposedly going to have a series of meetings, meet with 4 of these people, maybe not exactly these people, but 4 candidates before an announcement. But one gets the feeling the announcement's coming soon. Yeah,
it should be. Generally, it's within 2 to 3 weeks, and then it usually takes about 70 to 100 days to have the hearings and to have the nominee confirmed. So this could be very fast-moving.
Wow. Tell me about Brett Kavanaugh. He was a Kennedy clerk. What else do we know about him? He seems to be at the top of this list.
Right, and he's right here, D.C. Circuit, and the D.C. Circuit is really a feeder for the Supreme Court. So he has a history of a strong judicial philosophy, and he would be a great pick.
He dissented on that case where you had the illegal immigrants suing for an abortion. The court went and allowed that. He dissented there. Is that a tell?
I think it would be. And so that would be an example of a case where we're talking about the pro-life, where it's not just Roe v. Wade. There are a whole host of issues surrounding that topic.
He also took the Roberts line on Obamacare. So, that's an interesting...
But he was a lower court justice.
Right.
Lower court judge. So they are bound by the Supreme Court precedent.
Ah, okay. Okay, so that may be something. But again, he has a large track record of rulings that one can analyze. That could take a long time to sift through and feel their way through. Let's move on to Amul Thapar. What do we know about him?
Right, well, there's a lot of enthusiasm about him, being the first Asian justice on the Supreme Court, and there is this idea that he would be able to bring kind of a fresh perspective to it as well. But he also, likewise, has a history of fair, independent, just one of the brightest legal minds in the country, and I think the hardest thing is going to be for President Trump to pick someone from this list.
Yeah, well, he's a strong textualist, too, and someone who's praised Justice Scalia in the past, so
that's
we kind of know where he lives. Amy Barrett. Amy Barrett was a Notre Dame law professor, very esteemed. She is now on the 7th Circuit. You'll remember, and our audience will, Dianne Feinstein telling her the dogma lives loudly within you. Because of her Catholic faith, she has a number of children.
7.
7 children.
Let's give her full credit.
Okay, we'll give her the full credit. Your thoughts on she as a pick, given there's a very small track record here. She hasn't ruled in a lot of cases.
Well, she's very young. I think she's 46 years old. So President Trump really wants to make sure that he puts someone on the court who's going to be there for 4 decades. So it will be the Trump court, essentially, and that that may be his biggest legacy, to re-inspire the Supreme Court to actually honor the Constitution and respect the rule of law. You're not supposed to pick favorites, but I think it would be really fabulous if she were picked, particularly given that, on the left, there's so much support of women and saying that women should be in the executive suites, women should be on the Supreme Court, women should be in the House. And so to have the Democratic Party come after a woman who has, you know, just an amazing, she was valedictorian at Notre Dame Law School. She was the top, she won the top prize at Notre Dame Law School. So to have them come after her would be telling about where their philosophy
as a
lies.
woman, as a Catholic, and with such a short track record, she makes it very politically difficult for them to come after.
I agree.
Which is why, if I were picking, I'd go with her. Just
We
because
agree.
it's an easier pass, and she just went through the fires.
Yes.
So she's already been confirmed. So you have that precedent that you say, guys, she just went through this. Okay, let's move on to Thomas Hardiman. Tell us about him.
Right. Well, he's also on this list, a justice, or judge. I'm sorry, and he has a much bigger track record. So he's a little bit more easy to see where he would come out
in the mold of Scalia.
Yes.
By and large.
Indeed. And there's, like you're saying, he's definitely one of the people that's being whispered about as on the top of the list.
Raymond Kethledge, whom I'm not familiar with.
I'm not as familiar with him either, honestly.
Yeah, and he's formerly a Kennedy clerk, and he was the guy who slammed the IRS for their unwillingness to turn over materials to determine if they were targeting conservative groups.
Right.
So he also has a bit of a track record here. So if you had to pick from that list, I keep hearing Brett Kavanaugh mentioned at the top.
Yes, I hear him a lot too. Of course, Senator Cruz was on Fox this morning talking about Mike Lee. So it's interesting, there are some people on the list who don't have the judicial background. So it is kind of an interesting, it will be interesting to see what direction President Trump goes in.
We have 2 quick minutes left. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention the 2 big cases this week announced by the court. One touched on pro-life crisis pregnancy centers no longer having to make abortion materials, give that to their clients.
Right.
A good ruling?
Oh, absolutely. It's not that issue, that case touched on abortion, but it was much larger. It's whether the government can compel speech against your conscience or against the message that you want to give. And so regardless of the abortion part of the equation of that case, everyone should be happy that the government is being prohibited from compelling speech against people's deeply held convictions.
Let's move on to the travel ban, which the Supreme Court upheld. President Trump's travel ban. It really isn't a travel ban. It's a limited travel from key hot spots around the world. The plaintiffs here said this is racist and religiously motivated bias. They said you're targeting Muslim countries. The court said no, that's not what's happening.
Right, and the only thing disappointing about that decision was that it was not a unanimous decision upholding the executive proclamation. There are over 50 Muslim-majority countries in the world. This only affected 7. It was intended to put pressure on these countries to share information with the United States. Some of the countries Chad and Iraq have fallen off the list.
Right.
So it shows that and it was after a worldwide multi-agency review to see if we were getting enough information of every single country.
And some of these countries were on President Obama's watch list,
Exactly.
too. So, I mean, there was a lot of, but they tried to bring in President Trump's rhetoric during the campaign and use that as evidence in some way to recast the executive order. It didn't work. They're upholding it. Thank you so much for being here.
Great to be with you.
Great to see you. Thank you. We'll be with Michael Colbert in just a moment, but some news to share with you. Notoriously outspoken Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte, who isn't afraid to curse out world leaders, including Pope Francis, has kicked it up a notch, extending his criticism to the man upstairs. This past week, Duterte was asked in front of a television audience why God would create a perfect world and then allow the fall. Duterte agreed with the premise of the question, recounted the story of Adam and Eve, and then asked this rhetorically.
Who is this stupid God?
He followed that up with an equally blasphemous comment, which we won't repeat. The mocking sparked an immediate outrage in Asia's most populous Catholic nation. Duterte's spokesman defended him, saying the Philippine president has a right to express his opinion on religion, and cited his previous disclosure that when he was young, he was sexually abused by a priest. This week, Duterte looked to quell the controversy. He's created an ad hoc presidential committee to open up dialogue now with the Catholic Church, with whom he has been at loggerheads since being elected president. We'll see how that ad hoc committee goes. And the German Bishops' Conference has published a controversial pastoral handout which allows some Protestant spouses to receive Holy Communion with a slight caveat. In a statement published Wednesday, the German bishop stressed that the handout is not a document of the bishops' conference, even though 2/3 of the body voted in favor of the guidelines. Instead, it is merely an aid to individual bishops, they say. The publishing of the guidelines appears to have been done in defiance of the concerns from both those within the German episcopate as well as some senior Vatican officials. The German conference said, "It is important for us that we are on an ecumenical quest to achieve a more profound understanding and even greater unity among Christians." Pope Francis appeared to give an opening to the German bishops issuing the statement. He said this past weekend during an in-flight press conference that he didn't necessarily have a problem with the content of the intercommunion proposal of the German bishops, but that if approved by their conference, it immediately becomes universal. He added that individual bishops could decide on their own when intercommunion would be appropriate, so long as it is in accordance with canon law. And Pope Francis on Thursday appointed 14 new cardinals, exhorting them to resist temptations toward vanity and to stay on mission. In his homily, Francis told the new cardinals to avoid the quest for honors, jealousy, envy, intrigue, accommodation, and compromise, and he urged them to serve the poor. The Church's authority, he said, grows with this ability to defend the dignity of others, to anoint them, and to heal their wounds and their frequently dashed hopes. With Thursday's ceremony, there have now been 74 cardinals named by Francis during his 5-year papacy. Of 125 cardinals currently young enough to vote in the next conclave, 59 of them are Francis's appointees. 47 were appointed by Pope Benedict, 19 received their red hats from Pope St. John Paul II. Now here to give us a preview of this year's Independence Day extravaganza, a Capitol Fourth, the national celebration and concert from the U.S. Capitol, I'm joined by executive producer Michael Colbert. Michael, thank you for being here. You and your father jointly produced two of what I think are two of the most unifying events in the country, and that is the Memorial Day concert and a Capitol Fourth. How did you get involved with your father in this?
Well, you know, it was July 4th, 1981.
Wow.
The first concert. My dad was coming down to the Capitol and said, "Hey, kid, jump in the car," okay? And mostly I was in awe, you know, but I had a job. I had to keep an eye on his script and make sure he had his Diet Cokes.
Oh, okay.
So,
very important, very important things as those multiple rehearsals kick in. So then you get formally involved down the road.
That's right, yeah. Upon graduating from Catholic University here in Washington, I went back to Massachusetts, where we hail from, and I spent a year working for Catholic Charities at a homeless shelter for families. And, you know, I wanted to give something back. I wanted to learn. It was a blessing. I got to live with my grandmother. And, you know, when I was done with that year, I came back down here to Washington. And, you know, my dad just said to me, "What are you doing on Monday?"
Get in the car.
"I'm not, yeah, you got it." Right, exactly, you know. And so away it went from here.
Wow.
And, but for over 15 years, I've, you know, gone away from our company Capitol concerts and worked on programs in New York and Nashville and Los Angeles, Country Music Awards and the like. I lived in Los Angeles for a long time. And, you know, working with my dad, not only was it a joy, but, you know, we used to say I was never going to be an SOB, a son of a boss, okay? So I was able to go out on my own, you know, and learn and produce and all that kind of stuff. But it was always stayed connected here and would come in and help him with the concerts.
And now you've taken the reins over and continued what he started. And there was an interview where he said it's important to always protect the vision of these concerts. What was his vision and the vision?
Yeah, his vision was, you know, with Memorial Day, let's start, okay? After Vietnam, Memorial Day kind of got lost a little bit in the nation. And he felt that it was one of our most important holidays. And to, to come together as a nation, as a community, to the Capitol and tell those who are serving, who have served, their families, that we honor you, we remember you, we love you. And, today we are at war. There's so many who've come home with visible or invisible wounds. And, this is our opportunity, to let them know how much we thank them, we love them. But we're also trying to bring Memorial Day back to the real meaning. That time to remember the over 1 million Americans who've made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. So that's what guided him through Memorial Day, and I'm really honored and proud to continue that tradition. But on the 4th of July, this is like a common in New England in the town square. And to come together, like John Adams said, it would be the most memorable day in history, right? With pomp and parade,
and fireworks,
and illuminations.
Illuminations,
right?
That's right.
And so to be able to share joy, to celebrate, to come together in our love for this nation, it's about unity. And so I'm very, very proud to keep that going.
Well, it's an important tradition, and I think at this time, when you see the politics so divided in ways, frankly, I've never seen in my career, over 20 years of covering this town.
Yes.
It seems the tempers are at a higher pitch, and the animosities have grown. It's important to remind people, and I say this all the time, that we are one people, and these events remind us of those moments. Tell me, from your perspective, what of your dad's example do you take with you as you go to these Capitol grounds and continue what he did and watch the scaffolding get into place and the band come together and the performers arrive?
Yes.
What in his example did you see that you go, I'll never lose sight of that?
Well, my father wanted to give back. He wanted to make a difference and to use this, powerful medium of television to do that. So he felt guided in doing these things, and I truly do as well. It's when you're trying to do something good, we know it's not always easy, but for us to be able, like Isaiah, comforting those who mourn, I mean, that's a real strong guiding force. And his faith and mine are really such a big part
at the heart of it. Yeah, I want to show
Absolutely.
the audience a little clip of your dad. This is from an interview we did a few years ago. Watch.
I meditate almost every day on Scripture, and I'm trying to listen to what we should be doing, and I feel like I'm getting a lot of grace and support to do this.
This concert is now in its 38th year, the Capitol Fourth, which is really unbelievable. And you must be, having watched it mature and grow, you must be in awe of how big it's become. Why do you think people tune in every year? It's the highest rated event on PBS.
That's right.
Why?
People tune in because they're looking for good programming. They're looking for something, as we were talking earlier, to unite America, okay? And, why not have a party, too, This wonderful experiment in democracy, it's the greatest country in the world. I know we have our ups and downs in life and all that kind of stuff, but for this day, to get together and have a moment of joy, what's wrong with that?
And PBS is common ground. It's common ground
That's
in the
right.
broadcast universe. It's public television. I think it still serves an important and special role. And that your father has really helped grow and attract people to in many ways, and you, by continuing these concerts. What is the most challenging aspect of putting this together? What don't we see?
The weather.
Well, I've seen that a couple of times out on those grounds.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. there's so much work that goes on behind the scenes, months and months and months of preparation. Wow. But, you know, in show business, nobody wants to see the man behind the curtain. Yeah. And you want it to come across as smooth and easy. I love live television. But, you know, your eyelid can get a little twitchy, right, you know, when you see those clouds.
Well, how many people? There are hundreds of people working on this concert, this one concert.
Right. Yeah, yeah. It's over 500 people working backstage, and we just added up on a Capitol 4th this year, in one way or another, 471 performers.
Oh my gosh.
You know, between the National Symphony Orchestra, Choral Arts,
the flag bearers.
That's right, the Army Band, on, all of the artists. We have a real fun moment coming. Jimmy Buffett is going to be July 4th this year, and he's bringing his Broadway musical, Escape to Margaritaville, and there's over 30 members in the cast, you know what I mean?
My gosh.
But it's going to be a party to kick off the party.
And you've got Broadway legend Cheetah Rivera.
Oh, we're
which
honored.
Is incredible.
Oh, we're really excited. This year marks the 100th anniversary of the great Leonard Bernstein's birth. You know, he wrote West Side Story, which, you know, Cheetah originated in the role of Anita, so that she's going to host that segment. It's going to be pretty wild.
How many rehearsals do you do, Michael, for this production?
Somehow we shoehorn it all in about a day and a half. Okay, wow. Which we certainly could use a little more.
You could probably use 3 weeks, but you get a day and a half.
And you know, we've got a bunch of great pros who come work with us. It's a real community. You know, a lot of these shows can be pretty wild backstage. Everyone's coming together, and it's a family backstage. It's wonderful.
As you look back, because you've really been present since the beginning of this, what are the performances or the interactions of a performer with the production and with the concert that you recall most?
Ray Charles, America the Beautiful.
Oh my gosh.
He hits the most beautiful chorus, and the fireworks go off, you know, behind the iconic Washington Monument. You know, it was not only one of the great moments, to me it was one of the great moments of my life. If you couldn't be proud to be an American, then there was no way.
There's no way you're going to find it.
It was awesome.
Wow.
Okay. Dolly Parton coming out. She had so much chutzpah. She was so fun and one of the most lovely people you've ever met. I mean, on and on. There's been so many great moments with all this great tapestry of Americans and American music.
Well, for many years, the last, 12 years, my family has been physically on the site for both the Memorial Day and the July 4th concerts. Wow. And I have to tell you, my children now, I have a 19-year-old who's at Notre Dame, and he will tell me all the time, wow, remember when we saw Neil Diamond, Barry Manilow, when we saw Anita Baker or Natalie Cole?
Right.
Really, these are the icons of American music, and it's so great that you can share it with the whole nation. But to be present and watch it live, it really is. It's an incredible gift to the nation.
And when the orchestra does its downbeat to sing a national anthem, and you look up at the Capitol, hundreds of thousands of people there, you know, I mean, it gives you goosebumps every time.
Yeah, no, it really does. What do you hope people take away this year? What's different this year?
This year, we have the most stars we've ever had. It's going to be a great party. John Stamos is coming back to host again this year. He did a fabulous job for us last year, and he's a new dad, and he's bringing his baby boy. He's pretty excited. We're honoring America's Band, the Beach Boys, and it's going to be a great
They'll be performing?
They sure will, absolutely. Great. And a little sneak hint here, Jimmy Buffett's going to play with them.
Oh, wow.
That's going to be an awesome moment. You know, the greatest a cappella group, Pentatonics, is coming. They've got the #5 album in the country right now. The young, hottest country singer out there right now, Luke Combs. He has the #1 album in country. Lauren Elena, who's a huge country star right now. Andy Grammer, who's such a popular pop star. But, you know, we've got legends.
Yeah, and Renee Fleming.
And the Renee Fleming, the Temptations. But Renee, I am just so in awe of her talent, but also what a wonderful human being she is. And so we're going to do something special. We're going to do a tribute to all of our troops and their families. Renee is on Broadway right now doing Carousel.
Right.
And she's going to come and sing You'll Never Walk Alone for all of our troops and their families. And then we're going to bring up on stage during the song 50 members of our armed services and their families.
Wow.
I don't think there'll be a dry eye in the place.
No. Well, there rarely is, I have to say, having sat through so many beautiful concerts. But it's a moment for the whole country to come together and to remember who we are as a people, and to salute that and to celebrate it. And I thank you, Michael, for making it possible for all of us.
Thank you, and we hope you'll come join us again.
Don't save me a seat.
That's a deal.
Save me a seat.
See you on the 4th.
Great to see you. Thank you.
Cheers.
Finally, he is a member of one of the most legendary American R&B vocal groups of all time, Motown's The Temptations. He'll be performing with them at the Capitol 4th, along with Jimmy Buffett, the Beach Boys, as you heard, and a host of others. Please welcome from Las Vegas, Terry Weeks. Terry, thanks for being here.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I like the energy, Terry, which we expect along with the choreography when the Temptations come here to D.C. Now, tell me, you were not an original member of the Temptations. How did you come to join the group? I know you worked, and Otis Williams is, of course, still a member, a founding member of the group. How did you come to join this incredible organization that's been recording for almost 60 years now?
I know, absolutely incredible. I joined, well, let's start this story this way. I was in the Air Force for 8 years. Left right out of high school, knew what I wanted to do. I was at my high school, and the Air Force band came to my school to perform for us. And I had no idea that you could be in entertainment and still be an enlisted member. So when I saw that, I asked one of the guys that was in the band, I said, how did you get to do this job? Because my idea was the military will shoot, you know, protect your comrades or whatever, and it's all about fighting. Had no idea that entertainment was such a big part of that. And from that meeting with that guy, I forget his name, but that was so many years ago, I went and saw a recruiter probably a few days after that. And I actually enlisted my junior year of high school because I knew exactly what I wanted to do after seeing that band. That was my goal, to try and do exactly what those guys did.
Wow.
So that got me into...
And for you're from Birmingham, Alabama, too, where our network is founded and housed. You then, in 1997, you have a chance meeting with Otis Williams, who is the only remaining original Temptation. He's coming out of a shoe store, or you are. What happened there?
Yes, we were on the corner of Hollywood Boulevard and Cherokee.
Oh, my God.
And myself and two of my friends, we were out sightseeing. And we happened to see him in a shoe store. And, of course, we sat there and we plotted. We said, we're going to wait till he comes outside, and we're just going to ask him if he has a moment. So we sat there and waited for I don't know how long. He comes out. My friend, his wife, turns and says, Mr. Williams, you know, do you have a minute? And he said, well, yeah. And she turns to me and she said, sing. So I started singing something, Donny Hathaway tune. I forget which one, but I love all of his stuff. Started singing that, you know, and Otis is looking at me and we're talking. He said, well, what are you doing out here? I said, well, I don't live here. I said, I'm out visiting and I'm debating. I'm still in the military. I was still enlisted. I said, I'm debating whether or not to get out and pursue this. I don't know if I really want to. And from that, we exchanged numbers. So myself and my friends, we went sightseeing later that day, went to Venice Beach. We get home, and he left 2 messages. And this was back in the day when we had answering machines.
Right.
So the three of us are standing looking at this answering machine like it's God. And we're debating like, well, what do we do? Do we call him? I said, yeah, we got to call. He said call. I said, well, what do I say? My best friend, he said, well, say hello first and let that start.
That's a good opener.
I said, look, right. So we started talking, and lo and behold, his wife is from Birmingham. We started talking about that, and he breaks from that. He said, look, I like what I heard. I'm interested in signing you to my production company. And I'm like, but we only had a brief encounter. I said, how do you? He said, hey, look, this is what I've done all my life. I know what I heard. I'm interested. He said, look, I said, look, are you serious? I said, if you're serious, do the contracts. I said, I'll have an attorney look at it, and then we'll go from there. So about a month later, lo and behold, like just as he said, he sent the contracts. I had an attorney look at them. Everything was on the up and up. I ended up coming. I had 30 days left in the military. I got out. About 2 months after that, I ended up coming to California, and lo and behold, we've been working together. That's 27 years ago now.
Unbelievable. And during your while you're working for Otis, one of the members of the Temptations comes down with cancer, fighting cancer of the throat.
Right.
You step in for him.
Exactly.
Now, how did this happen? Was there any trepidation of joining a team like this?
Well, I had no inkling. That was not a goal of mine. I was happy being a fan of this group and everything that they stood for, and I would have been happy remaining being a fan. But the opportunity came, and he said, Terry, we need, contractually, we need 5 bodies out there. So what they did was the 4 guys were on stage. I was behind a curtain singing from the wings, unbeknownst to the audience. And it was supposed to be for a month, and it ended up being 10 months. And so that's when O turns to me and says, can you dance? I said, of course I can dance. I said, why? He said, well, the job is yours if you can dance. I said, when do we get started? I said, this is something I didn't plan. It was unbelievable for me. Wow. Like I said, I've always been a fan. I would have been happy remaining being a fan.
But Terry,
and I find it hard to even include myself.
They had a height requirement, though, in the Temptations. Everybody had to be 6 feet tall, right? They waived that for you.
I knew you were going to bring that up.
Okay, well.
Absolutely.
Got to do my research.
Well, the miracle of a 2-inch heel fixed it. that was the quick fix. They put a 2-inch heel on me, so that brought me up to 6 foot.
I see. So you're in.
I guess
tandem.
I can still dream, right?
How did you find it blending with that group? And I guess because you were singing from off stage, you had a good long tenure. Hearing and listening to the pace of the music, the rhythm, and you could blend your voice easily once you got in front of the audience.
Absolutely. That all played, it fell right into my lap. Because from Tops in Blue, it gave me everything I needed to walk right into the Temptation situation. It was perfect for me. So I was completely ready. It wasn't something I planned or asked for, but I took it, and I'm still running with that ball right now. I love it.
Tell me, is there a ritual that you all do
I know,
every
it's a crazy
time
story.
you go on stage?
Absolutely. We gather and we pray. We put God first, always. We pray, and if there's anyone around us, nearby, that would want to be included, we invite them in. And, this is something we do, we always done, we will always do, because without God, we couldn't do this. And we're not teenagers, we're older, middle-aged men, and you got to be physically able to do this type of show to pull it off, because the fans, they deserve that.
Yeah, and they have the memory of that sound, and they want to, hear that in front of them.
Oh, absolutely.
Tell me, what is it like for you, Terry, not only a member of the Temptations, a venerable American legendary group, but also as a veteran of the United States military, to be singing at this Capitol 4th celebration at the nation's birthday?
Yes. Hey, I'm like any other guy. I love a great party, and you can't get any bigger than July 4th. That's the ultimate party. The Super Bowl can't compare to this type of party.
Well, you did that one
and
too.
it gives us a chance to give back. Oh, right, we did. But the thing is, July 4th gives us the opportunity to give back to our servicemen and women, abroad, and stateside. We want to recognize them because what I do and what the other guys do, we wouldn't be able to do this without their help. And I'm always preaching that to the other guys that, I have a special place for servicemen and women in my heart. I always will, and I will defend them, and I will stand for them always.
Well, what is your favorite Temptations song, and what do you think we might hear at the Capitol 4th celebration? I need a preview before I show up.
Of course, I've got sunshine.
On a cloudy day.
You're going to hear the My Girl.
Of course, got to do that.
You know it. And here's the crazy part. The minute you start that song, you don't have to finish it because the audience is singing right along with you. This song is so ingrained in American history that I'm thankful that I get the opportunity to extend it and to give it an extended life because the original five guys gave us a vast amount of material to do. Our audience, the fans, they grew up with this group, so they're knowledgeable about any and everything that pertains to this group. And I would absolutely be nuts if I came in and tried to change anything. You don't have to change greatness. Greatness lasts. It has no expiration. It'll last forever. It's here when we're dead and gone. I mean, this music is so powerful. That's why it's still here, some 60 years later.
Well, this is going to be an incredible show. Broadway, rhythm and blues, you got Motown, you got the Beach Boys, Jimmy Buffett. I mean, you really can't go wrong here. So I thank you, Terry, and all the Temptations for doing things the way you do. Nobody does it better, and I thank you. We'll be looking forward to the concert. All right, my friend. Thank you for being here.
Great, thank you.
And you can catch the 38th annual Capitol 4th on Wednesday, July 4th at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on PBS. PBS.org has all that information. That's all the time we have for now until next week. The show continues on Facebook and Twitter. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter. I put all my appearances there. You don't want to miss that. The links are at RaymondArroyo.com. Be sure to join us next week. Until then, we'll be scouting the world over for all that is seen and unseen. On behalf of the staff and crew of EWTN News, a happy 4th of July to those of you in the United States. We thank you for watching. I'm Raymond Arroyo from Washington, D.C. Bye now.